television. Now we are shifting gears into something that concerns almost every Nigerian, with the exception of the political class. What are we talking about? We'll be appraising the economic reforms of the current administration led by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and of course, we'll be looking at those strong points of this administration and, of course, those lapses that we have observed over the past 3 years regarding the economic reforms of the federal government. It ranges from the removal of fuel subsidy, recapitalization of the banking industry, and a couple of others. We have in the studio with us Oluseyi Odufuwa, Managing Director and CEO, Capital Plus Management Limited, is equally a financial management consultant. It's a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Okay, what do you make of the economic reforms of the current administration in the past 3 years or thereabout? Is it all about pains, or it's a combination of pain and gains?
Okay, so thank you very much for that. For me, it's a combination of both, but more of long-term gains. If you look at when the administration came into power, we had so much of negative macroeconomic indices that was affecting us. And I've been to this studio severally, and we have reeled out the roadmap and how we emphasize that it's going to work out. And for every one of them, I think it's working out very well. Okay, so looking at the administration from 2023, two major reforms, total removal of fuel subsidy and floating of the naira. I said it here before that total removal of fuel subsidy, every major aspirant at that period said it was going to happen. They were going to do it. And as an economist, we also emphasized that that was the right way to go. But for me, if I were president, I would have done it a little bit differently. Yes, it will have been total removal, but I would have staggered it. What I would have done first, initially, was to put into place social safety nets, first, before the total removal. We knew quite very well that, as at that time, subsidy was only provided for in the first 6 months of that administration. That's the Buhari administration. And that was the final part of that administration. So it was a banana peel for the Tinubu government. There was no provision at all for subsidy. So if I were president, what I would have just done was to announce an extension, go to the National Assembly, present an MTEF, medium-term expenditure framework, to accommodate for subsidy probably for another 6 months maximum, so that Nigerians will know beforehand that this is the roadmap. This is where we are going to, there's going to be hardship. But while the president was campaigning, he made it clear that subsidy was going to go. So Nigerians already knew the roadmap. It was going to be tough. We had to be resilient, and at the end of the day, we were going to benefit for that. So the second one, which is floating of the naira. At that time too, it was quite clear that naira was not running at its own pace, at its own pedestal. Naira was heavily managed. As at that time, revenue to debt servicing, debt servicing to revenue, at that time was 98%. So we were using 98% of the Nigerian revenue to service debt only. So it was only 2%. 2% could not even pay salaries, and that was why that administration borrowed about 100 trillion, including ways and means of about 27 trillion naira, which was not even budgeted for. So at that time, we were almost going to be like a Somalia. My apologies. And so those reforms were necessary. It was painful, but we had to go through it. Somehow, Nigerians needed to pay for the lapses of previous administrations. Right. And that's what we faced at the beginning of the Tinubu administration.
So two major reforms you've mentioned here that, again, this administration will take credit for.
Yes.
That's the total removal of subsidy, like you said, and of course the floating of the naira. Also came the unification of the tax reform bills.
Good.
And of course, a lot of Nigerians also had issues grappling with that. So here you've explained that if you were Mr. President, you would have staggered the removal of the subsidy. That wasn't done. We're grappling with that at the moment. So now let's talk about what's the reform the unification of the tax bill has done for Nigerians. Now we have the Nigerian Revenue Service,
yes,
of course, which replaced the LIRS, and of course, it is
FIRS.
expected, the FIRS, sorry, it is expected that the NRS is now the coordinating
yes,
agency for all remittances and taxes in Nigeria.
yes.
A lot of issues also came with that when it was introduced. Some state governors didn't buy it at first, but at the end of the day, it was taken. So since, you know, the coming on board of the new tax law, how has that helped in shaping the revenue shore up of Nigeria? Because we know that we've also been able to make some savings through you know, the wealth fund. So how has that also helped in the economic reforms of this administration?
I want to say that it has helped very greatly.
Okay.
Before now, tax revenue to GDP was about 9%, just 9%. And we had only about 30 million Nigerians in the tax net, which was very low, and it could not help in nation building. So, but presently as we speak, we have about 13.5%. That's tax revenue to GDP. And as we speak to, about 100 million Nigerians are already in the tax net. Yes, the government projected about 47 trillion in terms of collections for this year. And as we speak, they've met about 35% of that projection. Okay. And so, but the irony is that out of the 100 million Nigerians in the tax net as we speak, about 95% are also under exemptions because of personal income tax. So your first 800,000 for the year is exempted. So only about 5% to 7%, you know, which constitute the company income tax, that's SITA, and any other taxable institutions are the major ones government is targeting to make that revenue. So government is targeting the rich, government is targeting institutions to take over about 90% of the target for the reforms. So it means that the present administration too is quite sensitive to the plight of Nigerians. And that's the beauty of this tax reform law. Quite sensitive to say that the lowest ebb of masses should not be affected at all because they constitute the largest in the scheme of things in the reforms. So for the tax reforms, 13.5%, an average developed economy is just about 35%. I'm talking of even the US and the UK. It's just about 35%. Nigeria was quite very low. At 13.5, I know that the Nigerian Revenue Service for this year is targeting about 16%. Next year, probably 2027, when the administration will round up its first term, probably about 19 to 20%. So by 13.5 revenue to GDP, it's not bad at all.
Okay, I do agree with you that the new tax law has actually reduced some kind of burden of Nigerians, especially those in that bracket of annual income of 800,000 or 1 million naira maximum. But then the removal of fuel subsidy has also reduced fiscal deficits. State government and federal government getting more revenues, getting more allocations. But then, when you look at the quality of life of an average Nigerian, it's still not reflecting. Because all the figures that you are quoting this morning, it's looking like there's some kind of magic to them.
Okay then. Okay, so beautiful. Before now, revenue, monthly allocation for the 3 tiers of government used to be between 600 to 900 billion. So, but presently, as we speak, is between 2.5 trillion monthly to 3.5 trillion that the 3 tiers are sharing. So it means that for most local government, state government, they are sharing by 100%.
So more money in their coffers.
Far more money. Wow. And that's the beauty of these reforms. Local government autonomy reform, the tax reform, that's the removal of fuel subsidy. It has broadened the horizon of our revenue, which is good for the economy. So, but what President Bola Ahmed Tinubu also did was to give state powers, which is local government and state government, that autonomy to run. That, you know, decentralizing government was the in thing. And that's what it did. Let's decentralize take more funding, concentrate on grassroots development.
Right.
And that's why I always say that people should hold responsible their local authorities more. Yes, look at what the federal government is doing with their funding. Look at the massive infrastructural development simultaneously across the length and breadth of the country as we speak now. Some people will say road construction is that what will put food on the table, but you need it for economic growth and development. Look at the real sector. That's the SMEs and co. The real sector controls about 57% of GDP as we speak. And, you know, look at Lagos Calabar alone, the kind of jobs it has produced, economic, you know, development along that corridor alone, reduction in the timing in terms of moving from point A to point B. So it is developing the economy more. But you know, it's a different conversation when we look at it from the fact that how does it affect the common man? Right. I've been asked, you know, severally from different media platforms. But you see, we must be very realistic when we are making these projections. There's nowhere in the world as we speak today that inflation has not risen in the last 2 to 3 years. There's nowhere in the world. And Nigeria cannot live in isolation. As we speak now, global disruptions is also affecting the country. You know, what are the cushions we have in place before now? Almost nothing.
Social interventions.
Yes, almost nothing. Look at, for instance, now, the refinery that we have. Ordinarily, Nigeria should have a state-owned refinery. We do not have at all. For instance, if Dangote refinery was not there, you and I will buy PMS for as high as 3,000. There's no way. Because of global disruptions. Right. Because we don't run our economy in isolation. But because we have, you know, a privately owned institution that is covering for us, we are still buying at about 1.3. And government is putting interventions in the aviation sector, agri sector, and the like. But for the common man, we should begin to live in reality. Currently, as we speak, one single window for exchange, which is the NAFEM, you know, window. And that NAFEM window, FX has been stabilized fully to around 1.3 to 1,400. That is the real position of the Naira.
Right.
That's the truth. And that's why IMF and World Bank said very clearly that if you want foreign investment more, if you want us to more capital flight into your country, Naira must be floated.
Right.
Naira must run at its true position. Investors from abroad must know the true health of your economy. Okay. And that's what the president did. So Nigerians must know that going forward, egg will no longer be 600 naira per crate. It won't go back there.
Right.
Yes. You know, bread will no longer be, I don't know how much they used to sell it before, maybe 500 or 300. It can't happen again. This is our new reality and we must live by it. So what Nigerians should do is to find a way to increase your purchasing power. It's as simple as that. And by doing so, I'll give you some more macroeconomic indices. Look at the real sector. No, sorry.
Let me. So, because again, those are solutions.
I wanted to finish that line of thought.
Yeah. Sorry for continuation. Those are solutions. But let's quickly look at this before you come to your line of solutions here, so that we don't also lose the thought on the inflation issue you raised earlier, and talking about the floating of the Naira, and now the Naira is in its true state. And so how has this also affected investors' confidence in Nigeria? Talking about whether or not investors now feel more comfortable bringing their investments into Nigeria, as well as the ROI, their returns on investment.
Good.
So let's quickly talk about that before we come to again talk about how Nigerians can begin to look at their purchasing powers, or how to again look at many things. So let's quickly talk about return on investment and whether or not investors' confidence is back here in Nigeria.
Okay, thank you. And that's where I was going for my line of thought. You know, to reel out some statistics on the real sector. And they are very beautiful statistics. I know the last time I was here, the Nigerian capital market as an indicator is one of the barometers for you to gauge the health of an economy. And if you look at the Nigerian NGX, ASI was around 180,000. As we speak now, ASI, that's the Usher Index, is currently at about 251,000. As we speak now, market capitalization is about 161 trillion. The last time I checked, we hit 100 trillion. That means 61 trillion has entered into the Nigerian capital market in 5 months. 61 trillion naira has entered. So it means that the market is doing so well.
Okay.
Can I tell you that year-to-date return on investment in the market is 61%?
61.
I'm telling you, from January to May, 61% year-to-date returns. So those are the indicators you look at. In the last 2 years, the banks did recapitalization, and all banks put together, recapitalized to the tune of over 4 trillion. I think about 4.6 or 4.7 trillion. And so it tells you that foreign investment is coming in every day.
Into the country.
The reason is because the economy is fertile. The reason is because there's so much happening in the economy. Look at treasury bills, for instance. Every month, DMO says a minimum of about 700 to 800 billion every month for bonds and for treasury bills. And so, if you look at it, the economy is moving well.
Okay.
Look at the last.
Sorry, Mr. Odufuwa. I need to hold your thoughts. We'll come back to where you stopped. You stopped at treasury bills, and you were going to move forward. We need to take a commercial break. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
Progress.